Well, hi everybody, it's Fiona Hooper here again, and I'm back with another weekly instalment of my live show, The Poetry of Painting, after my short break last week, which was really good. So just before we get into the poetry, I'd like to give you another reminder about our forthcoming Blooms online art exhibition, which is taking place on Friday the 18th and Saturday the 19th of June. There'll be 10 of us artists from around the globe, and as well as seeing our artwork, you'll be able to chat to us in an informal and relaxed atmosphere, ask questions, and even maybe buy something if you find that really special piece that speaks to you. The tickets are free and can be booked via the link on my events page on my website, which is www.fionahooper.com. So if you'd like to get your tickets, you'll need a ticket even though it's free, because it's held on Zoom, and then you can go around and visit each artist in their separate rooms and chat with us and so on. So hopefully I'll see you there. Now back to poetry and painting. And this week I have great pleasure in welcoming back Markey Mark Symmonds. Let's bring you on. Hi Markey Mark, how are you? How you doing? Oops, sorry, I've taken you off again. Right, off we go again. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me back.
You're very welcome. It's good to see you again. Yeah. I believe you've been keeping really busy with your poetry just lately.
I have, yeah. I went for a bit of a lull where I haven't written anything. And I've been getting a bit sort of iffy about it, But I did a recording radio show, went out last night, and it'll be going out again on Friday with Birmingham Hope Radio. And that was brilliant. Several of my pieces I read on there, plus picked all the music for it as well. And there's chat and all sorts on there. So tune in on Friday night on Hope Radio. If you go to my Facebook author page, the link's on there, and that'll get you through to the show.
Great.
So I'm really pleased with that. And as a result, we're in talks about me going back and doing another show on there as a presenter, and also a party in the park that's coming up with a lot of poetry. So I'll keep you informed of that.
Excellent. Yes, do keep us updated on that, because I'm sure lots of people would love to be there and hear you. So, and hear the radio as well, of course. So great news. So
yeah.
So this week we decided to write poetry about one of my seascapes, and it's one called Cromer Pier. And as usual, you've seen the painting, but I've not told you anything about it. So I'm dying to hear how you've interpreted it as a poem. So let me put the painting up for people to see. There we are. And Mark, would you like to go ahead and read your poem for us?
Right. You might be quite surprised by this one, because I didn't know that was Cromer Pier. So this is my interpretation, just purely looking at that picture.
Great. Great.
I've called it Night Watch.
Mm-hmm.
The dark, desolate castle casts reflection on the water as red sky warns shepherds for this night. The light has faded too soon as dark shadows stalk the water's edge, foreboding sight silhouetted against the pink night sky. Still waters rolling and rippling meet the sky, but quietest of all, it comes to rest below the castle wall, where it creeps and crawls so not to disturb those eerie shadows that lurk on the water as though waiting to pounce and slaughter. Yet the sea knows it has more power than this dark pile of bricks and mortar that cast their spell on the calm water. For if the sea should anger and join forces with the sky, the storm should take the rocks, and that castle would die. So they wait in solitude of harmony until the light falls over the bay so tranquil. And that was what I wrote for that one.
Wow, that's very powerful. Gosh, That's and very different from what I wrote. So that's really interesting, to see two completely different interpretations of that same painting in poetry, which is great. And Marky Mark, will you send me your poem so I can put it on my Facebook page later on for people to see?
Yes,
Probably in a few
absolutely.
days' time it will be, I expect, but that would be great if you wouldn't mind. So share it with them so that they can read it again for themselves. That'd be lovely.
Yeah, I'll
So
send you all three of them. Yeah.
brilliant, thanks. So okay, so mine, I did call it Cromer Pier because I knew that's where it was, because I had a bit of a head start on you on that one. So off we go. Cromer Pier. It's the end of the day, a long, sun-filled, fun-filled day. Walking the coast path, paddling in the foaming surf, children's sandcastles lying abandoned on the beach, no match for the waves lapping at their sandy ramparts, nature smoothing its sandy canvas domain once more. The kites have all been reeled in, the surfboards stowed, little crabs released from their confinement in buckets, to be replaced by spades and beachcombing spoils, beautiful shells, bleached and sand-smoothed driftwood, a crab's empty chalky carapace and a pretty little pebble. As the light begins to fade and the clouds take on a rosy hue, the pier stands out in silhouette against the glowing sky, waiting for the lights that proclaim the evening's performance, attracting the holidaymakers for their nightly entertainment. They gaze at nature's beauty while strolling along the pier. After a day in the refreshing and invigorating sea air, relax and reflect on the beauty of this serene scene. The wet sand and shallow sea mirroring the sky's palette, washing away footprints and restoring its pristine glory. Rest now and sleep, ready to do it all again tomorrow. So
Wow.
quite different. Mine more focusing, oh, thank you. Focusing on the day that's been and what's to come, and yours focusing on the natural powers of the sea and the weather, and versus man-made, things, which, let's face it, and against the power of nature, man-made things are pretty flimsy on the whole, aren't they, really? So
They are,
yeah.
yes. But something like what appears to be a castle at the beginning of that pier, you know, how they withstand the power of the sea for all those years, is incredible, really. That
Yes.
you could build something that strong. So and yeah, I mean, my poetry went, I wrote it from quite a dark perspective. So, it was all about the darkness of the of the poem, of the picture. But likewise, I wanted to get in the reference to the red sky, and it's like red sky at night, shepherd's delight, red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning.
Yeah.
So so that's kind of what I focused in on, and the shadows in the water and things like that.
I mean, it just gives a whole different vibe to it for your poem compared with mine, which is it's what I love about this, because you get such a different interpretation, the way one person sees it and the way another sees it, and I just think that's absolutely fascinating, because for me, I paint a painting and I've got my own ideas about that painting. Someone else seeing it, to them it may bring back certain memories that are either good memories or bad memories, and would mean that they would either love the painting or maybe really quite dislike it if it reminds them of something that's not very pleasant, So and I guess it probably happens with poetry as well, that someone writes a poem and the person reading it may interpret it quite differently from how the poet intended it and the thoughts they had in their head when they wrote it. Do you think that?
And I think that does happen, and actually, I'm glad that happens, because I know the perspective I write my poetry from, and the perspective for each poem. But if somebody else receives that as a different perspective, then that's fine, because poetry, like art, is subjective. You like some things, you don't like others. you know, we engage with some things, we don't engage with others. Part of the reason why a lot of people don't engage with poetry is because they've only heard Wordsworth and Shakespeare and Psalms in church, and they don't resonate with them. But when they hear a modern poet, somebody like Benjamin Zephaniah, and some of his work, you know, you can relate to it. You can go, yeah, that relates to me. You know, I understand that. I understand what he's talking about. You know, and
More
so yeah, I
relevant.
think yeah, it is relevant, and I think, you know, that's as relevant with art as it is with poetry.
And wouldn't it be just so boring if we all liked just the same things? And that it would be, we'd all have exactly the same decor, the same paintings on our walls. It would just be so, you know, it would take so much excitement out of the world, wouldn't it? I think.
Yeah,
You know.
that's what I think's exciting about poetry at the moment, is because it comes from this tradition of having, you know, anything from poets, various bits of poetry called haikus, to various rules of poetry where, you know, you have to rhyme every second or every third line, and things like that. And actually what a lot of people are writing is free verse. And so that they can flow it, they can rhyme it, they can do all sorts of things with it, and it becomes very exciting then, because it's not a standard format. It almost comes alive.
Yeah, and it's about the rhythm of the words as well, isn't it? As much as anything, you know,
Yeah,
the way it's said,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, if I delivered that poem with my camera turned off, you would get an even eerier feeling for it. You know, and I can actually make that poem very eerie by the way I read it, or I can make it less eerie by the way I read it. You know, and that's the other thing that makes poetry and spoken word, you know, a real interesting genre. And you realise that actually when you hear somebody else read your poems. A recent book launch of mine, when I launched Rhythm of the Ink, the First Wave, which is my latest collection on Amazon. We did a formal book launch, and 3 poets did read pieces of my work, and it was really interesting to hear their take on it and how they formed it, and it sounded very different as well. So
did it almost sound as though someone else had written it when they read it?
yeah. But it was
Wow.
my words, which is really bizarre. But yeah, it's a whole, you know, genre of things that go on, and that just so dovetails with art.
Yes, yeah. I don't think I've heard anyone read one of my poems as yet, so that would be a first for me if that happens. So it'd be interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe I'll get someone to read one and just see how, because it must be quite a strange feeling the first time that happens. I would have thought, you know, having someone else read it, and it's different, you know, as you say, put a different edge on it. So
different edge and even a different accent can make such a difference to it. But again, I've got poems that I've read 2 or 3 times on Zoom, and I've done them 3 different ways. You know, each time I've read it, I've done it a different way. I might have done it quite dark and slow. I've done you know, I might have done it really fast and quick and punchy, and other times just, you know, very softly. You know, so you can really change the word that's on the page, and give it some depth and definition.
Change the whole atmosphere of it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So you mentioned your book launch, and have you got another book in progress at the moment?
Not at the moment, no. I may well start that probably after the summer. What I'd like to do for the current book is do a CD as well, so that people can listen to it in their cars and things like that. Also, because not everybody can access print. So that's something that I need to work on, because a lot of that I will need to pretty much have it all off the top of off pat, you know. and that for recording purposes, so that it's recorded quite quickly. Otherwise, it can get quite expensive. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that's what I'll probably do with that, and then we'll just have to see how things go after that.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the open mics are opening up again. If I
Right.
can, I've got two festivals. There's a poetry one at Leamington on the, I believe it's 7th of August. It's a festival in the park there, and so I'm doing some poetry there. And then at the back end of August, we've got the Kaya Festival, which is literally 5 minutes walk from my house. And I've got a slot that I'm going to be doing there. I think it's a 30-minute set there. So, but I shall be around there all weekend, and that's part of Kezabel's collectives. So
let's just hope the restrictions are all okay, and you can get lots of people there and everybody enjoying it and still being safe at the same time.
Yeah, I mean they've got quite good COVID safe policies in place. And then the latest thing is that Sinew is a book to keep your eye out for. I believe it'll be out on Amazon, but certainly there's a link on my author page again to get pre-orders in, and that is I've been doing something for the last few months. I've been on the Saturday night, midnight. I've been zooming to Nashville in Tennessee, and they've been running an open mic there for about 10 years now. And because they've got a lot of international poets now on Zoom who are attending that regularly, and so they've put together an anthology to commemorate their 10 years of running, and it's called Sinew. I think it's 72 poets in there. And I've got a piece in there called
Brilliant.
The Life Machine. So that's one worth people checking out. As I say, if you go to my author page on Facebook, just put Markey Mark Symmonds in, or Rhythm of the Ink, you'll find it, and then scroll down and you'll find the Sinew stuff. Click on the link there and you can order one from there.
Well, once this has gone on to my Facebook, if you'd like to put all the links in the comments after it, that'd be great. Then people can just click on them and go through. So just make it easy for everybody, which is good news.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We like easy, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Oh, well, I'm still excited about the plan for my book in due course, but still a little way off yet, because I've only got about 15 poems written for my paintings. I've got lots more paintings, but not so many poems yet. But with the poems from my guests, yourself included, contributing to the book as well, it's going to I think it's going to be just so exciting with the different styles and the different types of poetry, and that I think it's going to be really good. So I'm still
a brilliant piece. So
I'm still I don't know yet much about publishing a book, but I can find out. I will find out, and I've got some people that I can pick their brains, and hopefully they won't mind me doing that, and get some hints and tips from people. And
well, the publisher that I use who did my book, which was Dreamwell Publishing, they did most of the work on my book after I'd done the initial edits. Mel from there was also did a thing called Poetic Verse, and what they did was they got photographers to take photos, and they put them up on a site, and then poets could go along, look at the photos, and decide which one they wanted to do a poem about. And so they produced it's called Poetic Vision because obviously it's pictures and verse, but it was also all the money they made from it they donated to Guide Dogs for the Blind. And,
great!
But it was a great piece of work because the different pictures and poems that were in there were fantastic, and so you'd get one picture, one poem, and that really was very popular.
That sounds like a really good idea. Brilliant. Yeah. So
Yeah,
similar,
I can
but
put you in touch
mine.
with Mel if you want,
Yeah.
and
Thank
talk through
you.
some of the pros and cons with it. And her publishing company, Dreamwell Writing, might actually be prepared to publish for you.
Well, fingers crossed, because I've definitely got this on my list to do, because
Yeah,
it's just so exciting, and it'd be lovely to be able to share it with people and share all of my guest poems as well, because they're
yeah,
just I've been having some wonderful poems written about my paintings, yours included, obviously, and it'd just be lovely to be able to hopefully share that with a much wider audience as well. So yeah, it's something to look forward to for the future.
yeah, absolutely.
So the painting that we've been talking about, by the way, Cromer Pier, as I said, it's actually 40 by 80 centimeters, so it's quite a big one. That's excluding the frame that's on it at the moment, and it's painted in oils. So if anybody would like to have any more information about it, please do feel free to message me, and I'll let you know the details of anything that you want to know, really. So so that's good. So what's on the agenda next for you, apart from the shows? Are you just going to take it easy for the summer, do you think, as you said, just enjoy the
I've
good
got
weather? And
I shall fulfil my commitments, but fairly much taking a bit of a back seat then. Probably need some time to regroup, I think, and
because you were really busy over the winter months and everything as well, weren't you, with lots of online stuff, I think.
yeah, I mean, when we first started doing the Zooms, I think most of us, I mean, some weekends we could be doing 5, 6 Zooms in a weekend, and
Wow.
and you can't sustain that, and a lot of us have started backing off, and partly we've had to back off because we need time to write new stuff, but also because other projects have come along, like this project. They've come along, and we've wanted to get involved with those projects, and some people have gone off and done little films, and other people have concentrated on social media or live broadcast, and radio stuff and podcasts, and it's really taken off. Poetry everywhere at the moment, and just the BAFTAs, there was a poetry program there, got a BAFTA.
Wow, excellent.
Yeah,
That's great news.
a life in rhyme, which was a series of live poetry sessions with a range of poets that Benjamin Zephaniah did. So
great. Oh, hi, Rosie. Rosie's said hi. Hi there.
I
Good to have you on. And last night I was actually doing a talk to a poetry group, believe it or not, about my art, and then how I came to be doing this show, and what I'd found out about poets. And obviously I'm no expert, but find from guests like yourself as to how you write, and what sort of things you write, and the differences between my guests as well. So, and that was really interesting, because it really got me thinking before the talk last night about everybody that has been on my show, and what they've told me, and about writing poetry. And I think everybody so far has agreed that the poetry that they write seems to start in their head. So there's not really this fear of a blank sheet of white paper, because it's already taking place in their head, and then the paper's just, or the computer is just a way of recording it, as opposed to, okay, I've got a sheet of paper, I need to write a poem, which is probably a bit off-putting.
Yeah.
Whereas I think everybody so far has said ideas come to them, and they build on them, and maybe make some notes and that, but there's none of this sort of, right, I'm going to sit down and write a poem. It seems to be anyway, mainly that things just come to mind, and that's a new poem on the way, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And that, I mean, that tends to be how I write. Something will happen, you'll see something on telly, something will happen in the street, or some random thing will come into your head at 3:30 in the morning, and I personally, will play around with it in my head for a little while. If I start getting somewhere with it, I'll start to get it down on my phone, even if it's a few sentences, and then store it on the cloud. And then in the morning, I can go in on my laptop and start building that up and playing with the words and editing it all down, etc. And that's very much the way I write. But yeah, it does. It often just something clicks in, and you just get this idea in your head, and it just rolls around in there for a while, and suddenly you start picking sparks up, and that.
It's almost like it's fermenting in the background before it sort of matures into a poem, as it were.
I think so, but I think that's a general creative thing. I mean, I would have thought that some of the painting that you do was, although you're faced with a blank canvas and you're right, I'm going to paint this. You know, there must be ideas rolling around in your head that go, right, I'm going to get that down on canvas and things like that. So that creative side of it just festers away in there. I mean, a lot of poets have been saying lately, you know, they've lost their muse, they've lost their, you know, they're not writing, etc. And I think some of that is because we've performed so much, and we've put so much poetry out there. And now it's like, you know, you go through almost like a writer's block at times, but it gradually starts to come back again. You know, something will kick it in, and then, you know, you're back off and running again. I mean, is that the same that you find with your art, that you get times when you just can't paint because you don't know what you want to paint?
Occasionally. Generally, I've got a few ideas lined up, and I just store them on the computer, you know, as subject matter or whatever for when I, you know, for the future. I might be watching a TV program or something, which there was one a couple of weeks ago, and we were watching it on a recording, and I just said, after I said, don't delete that recording, because there was an image in it, or a little bit of the video in it, and I just thought, yes, you know, that's an idea for a painting. Not that I wanted to copy what was on the program, but it just sparked that idea. So I just wanted to go back to it, look at it again, and then that's what I did. One of my most recent paintings, which I can't show you quite yet because I still have to send it out on my newsletter first, because that's what I tell everybody that signs up to my newsletter. You'll see the paintings first. But it will be going out soon, and then I'll put it on social media after that, so people will get to see it. But it's another one on gold leaf, like some of the ones behind me. So yeah, really liking the gold leaf at the moment.
It's interesting, the power of pictures. I went back after my diagnosis of dyslexia. I went back to college to do my GCSE English, and I was a bit apprehensive about it, and I knew they would make adjustments. But I walked in the classroom, and one of the things we did on the first day was they showed us a picture of like I think it's 1940s, 1950s saloon, with a guy sitting there with a hat dipped to his whiskey, and somebody sitting the other end of the bar, and somebody behind the bar, and, you know, real atmospheric, and I like that sort of stuff. And then we had to look at it and then write a piece about it. Write a fictional story, or, you know, a narrative or something like that about it. And they suggest all use mind maps. And suddenly this, doing it with the picture and things like that, suddenly completely changed the playing field to the way I do things. And so it's kind of like I was able to go into this English, these English lessons, kind of on a playing field that I understood. And it so changed things around having visuals, you know, and you know, creative minds work very well with, particularly people who are neurodiverse, of being able to look at something and just pull the essence of it out, and you know, it almost triggers something up there, and then you're in, and you know, you you interpret that, and
Yeah.
it gives a different way of thinking. It thinks outside the box.
I think if if we think back to the start of mankind, as it were, everything was visual, really, wasn't it? Because you were looking for food, looking for prey, you were looking for animals that might be preying on you, and so everything was visual. We didn't have writing way back then, so I think it's probably one of the more basic ways of understanding the world, rather than the written word. But having said that, the written word can be so powerful and conjure up amazing images in the head. So
yes, that's right.
But I think it's really interesting the way that you found that really helped you to use the imagery as the the initial sort of interpretation for it, and to help with the writing.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I very much, and that's what I like about doing the poems to your paintings, because I can look at the painting and I look at it initially as a painting, and then I look at it deeper and think, what do I see in there? And as if we get around to doing the White Cliffs one for Dover, you'll see that there's something I've picked out very specific in there that's built the whole poem from that.
Yeah, excellent. Well, as you say, you have written another 2 poems, so you will be coming back, definitely. And it's been absolutely great to have you on the show again this week, Markey Mark, and really enjoyed it. Many thanks for writing and sharing your amazing poem with us. And hopefully, as I say, you'll send that to me so I can share it with everybody who may not have seen this recording, so they'll be able to read it for themselves. And I hope you'll be back very soon to read another of those poems for us, and another session of the Poetry of Painting.
I'd be delighted to. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm glad people enjoy and like the poetry that I come up with. And it's great to hear your poems about your pictures as well.
Thank you. That's lovely. So so next week I will be back with another fabulous poet coming to join me for more talk about poetry and painting. So I hope that you'll all be able to join me again for that, same time, same place. Just don't forget, you can sign up to my VIP mailing list to see new paintings and get invitations to events, etc., via my newsletter, and that's through fionahooper.com. So stay safe and have a good week, everyone. See you a week on Wednesday next Wednesday for another Poetry of Painting session. So bye now from Markey Mark and myself. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.